I remember walking into the race that morning, and I felt this sense of calm coming over me. I felt this sense of ease. I felt this sense of peace with it as well. But also in the same time, I also had this voice in my head saying, well, what if this goes wrong? What if something happens? What if this is a year where you do even worse than you did last year and you don't get that 100-mile PR? And what helped me to move forward despite feeling those fears at the starting line was focusing on one thing. All I needed to do was face the version of myself in the past and be better than that. Because in the past, I focused so much on trying to beat other people or be at the top of the podium or get the golden ticket. But the only thing that mattered to me was being better than who I was at the prior versions of the race. And there's something so calming about that because you know that you can control your effort 100% of the time. When you're fully focused on the things that you can do to be better than the version of who you were in the past, there's some sort of freeness to that. And I think that's what I was taking into the moment. If we have done the work and if we have showed up day after day, when we toe that start line, in the end of the day, we have everything we need to have an amazing day out there. I remember Aaron, my crew chief, was telling me like there was something different about his energy, and I felt that to the max. And that was the first inkling of a sign to say that this day was going to go really well. Tell you, there's going to be times tomorrow where it's going to be hard, it's going to be tough, but I know all of you, we've been working together, and every single one of you, when we got on a call together to say why you're out here, what your reasoning is, it was always backed by something along the lines of I want to see what I can do tomorrow. So tomorrow is a choice. It is a choice for you to choose who you want to be. Do you want to be the person that backs away from a challenge, doesn't keep going when it's hard, or shrinks away and just walks it when you know you can damn run? Nothing. Of course not. You want to be the person who can go and see that adversity and be like, I can still keep running, I can keep moving, I can keep going. Yeah, it's hot as hell, but I'm going to keep pushing on. So tomorrow is an opportunity for you to decide who the hell you want to be. When I think about ultramarathons in general, it's not about the finish line, it's not about the belt buckle, it's not about all the people telling you what a great job you did. What it is about is self-betterment and becoming a better version of yourself than who you were before you started that race. And quite frankly, not even just the race, but before you started the training process. I always say you can be any person you want to be as long as you're willing to learn and put in the work. And if you are able to put in the work day after day to be that person, you can do it. But the thing with self-improvement, it's tricky. It's not linear. It goes up and it goes down. There's going to be some times where you fail. There's going to be some times where you put up worse results than you did before. There's going to be some times that are going to be painful. For me, that was Javelina year 2 for me. Javelina year 1 was great, but then Javelina year 2, I actually had a worse time because I made mistakes and it just ended up being worse and I felt like I was regressing. But if you keep showing up one more time, if you keep putting in the effort one more time, you're going to find that you're not only going to be able to improve in the long term, but you're going to be better than who you were before. And that's what Javelina Jundred 2024 4 was all about for me, was showing up one more time to be the person that I wanted to be. And I thought about all the training I put in, all the work I put in, and now was the time to let it fly. And before I knew it, the gun was off and we were out there in the desert. The thing about Javelina is that it starts to get hot pretty early, even when it's not quote unquote hot. And what I mean by that is it started to get around, 65, 70 degrees, but because the course is so exposed, you start to feel that heat pretty early on. And as I was coming into the first loop, I looked down at my watch at my average pace, and I was dead on where exactly I wanted to be. 750, it's where I wanted to be, it's all I wanted to be in there. But I can definitely feel that I was breathing a little harder than what I would have wanted to, without changing my overall pace or intensity, and that was generally because the heat was coming out. And that was the first inkling where I knew, I said, okay, I'm not going to be able to push at the paces that I'm thinking I'm wanting to hit, and I'm going to have to pare down my intensity a little bit because I don't want to blow myself up. Because when I was coming into the first loop, I could tell that I was riding the line. Between if you push a little bit too over that line, you can blow up the race completely. And I didn't want to be in that place. I wanted to be well below the line so that I wasn't going to risk any sort of blow up, because that was the thing that really crushed me onto the first 2 years of the race. And I remember coming into the crew stop thinking, okay, do not blow this. Do not blow your shot here. Do not, waste this race. Do not be dumb. Don't be a hero. Just get in, get out, and make this happen. So we got into the crew stop, got in, I was exactly where I needed to be, was feeling pretty good, I got iced up and everything as such, and I came out to that second loop. Get back out on loop 2, full of ice and feeling optimistic. And as I'm feeling optimistic and I'm keeping my intensity low, I take one look at my watch. And the pace is significantly off where I had planned to be. At this point, I had been planning to running about low to mid 8-minute miles. And at this point, I was pretty much running low 9-minute miles. A significant increase to not only what my plan was, but also slower than what my first 2 years at Javelina were at this point. And it's really hard to think about that moment, because even though I had executed loop 1 great, at that moment, seeing that I was doing the worst that I had ever done at this point in the race, being so far off my target so early on, all those negative voices started to creep back in my head. I started to think about, wow, you're all about self-betterment, but here you are, year 3, getting even worse. Wow, you're going out and you're blowing up again at this race? Classic you, man. This is exactly what happened the first 2 years. Who, of course, would have expected you to do anything else different? This is going to be another year where you blow up. You're going to totally blow it. All these people that you went out and you set these big goals for of getting a 100-mile PR, they're all going to be laughing at you after this. And all those negative voices were just coming into my head, and I started to get more demoralized by the second, and beating myself up and starting to think, wow, this race is over at this point. But anytime I have a negative voice come into my head, sometimes I get lost in it. In this moment, I did get lost in it. But it's always good to take a step back and take a look at what that voice is saying and try to assess if this is something that's actually real. And for me, I had to take a look at that voice and say, okay, yes, I am running slower than where I'm at. That is true. But let's just check in and see where we're at. Because sometimes our mind can get ahead of our body and how we feel. We need to look inside ourselves and see, is there actually good in this scenario? So I checked into myself in the moment. I said, okay, well, let's assess everything. Yes, I'm going slower, so the negative voice is right there, but I checked in with my body. I wasn't feeling sore. I wasn't feeling tired. I wasn't feeling fatigued.
I was actually feeling the best physically that I've ever felt at Javelina at this point in the race. That's interesting. Wow. Okay, well, I'm going a little slower, but I'm feeling the best physically that I've felt too. And I get to a point too where I start thinking, okay, well, how's my breathing? My breathing is actually pretty good. I'm keeping good on keeping that intensity low. And I know what has happened to me in the past was I took the intensity too high and I burned my engine out in there as well. I said, okay, well, that's great too. All right, what's the third thing? How's my fueling? My fueling is great. My hydration's great. Do I feel hot? No, I actually don't feel hot at all. When it was 98 degrees out at this point and a lot of other people were really burning up. And I said, okay, there's a lot of good things to do at this point. So even though that negative voice was still rampant in my head and I was still feeling this sense of dread, I knew that all I needed to do was get into the next aid station, keep my intensity low, and trust the plan that it was going to work. And there's always something that I tell myself in races that have helped me, and this is what helped me through this section, is that it never always gets worse. So many times when we're in a bad situation, we can tend to think that it's always going to get worse throughout the entire race or throughout the entire struggle that we're dealing with. But just like there's winter, there's always spring that comes after it. Just like there's always nighttime, there's always day after it as well. And just like there's hard times, there's always good times that come back as well too. And in these ultra marathons, you're out there for such a long period of time that your chances of a bounce back and having something that is going to be a good moment is likely. I told my crew I wanted to sit down, and I sat down, and my crew is absolutely amazing, by the way. They're going ahead, and they're doing everything where all I needed to focus on was eating, taking in some water, regrouping mentally, and knowing that I needed to find strength on this loop 3 to be the best version I could, because this loop 3 was the hardest loop that always has knocked me in the first 2 years of the race. And even as I was going into loop 2 before I finished, even as I was coming into loop 3 as I was finishing loop 2, I started getting these thoughts in my head of like, dude, you haven't even hit loop 3 yet. How could you think that you can even go out there and do that? And I knew that I said, you know what, today I am going to go out and conquer this loop 3. I wasn't thinking about loop 4. I wasn't thinking about loop 5. I was just thinking about loop 3. And that's what I told myself. You just need to do loop 3 one more time. You just need to go out there and you need to find strength and you need to step into Lupo at this point. Lupo is an alter ego who I step into whenever I'm in the middle of a hard challenge because Lupo is a wolf. Lupo is intense and Lupo does not give up. And stepping into this alter ego helps me to remove myself from my own insecurities and become the best version of myself.
It's hurting everybody. There's a ton of carnage out there. So
we wrote down 9 to 9:30. Judo's 9:30 is the hot day. We just run out there.
Any more ice in your snow, Joe?
And at that moment, sitting in that chair, I fully became Lupo once again, and I knew that I needed to go out there and execute. So I told myself one thing: don't blow yourself up, but give it your very best, give it your very all, power up out there, and just be in a position where you can take this loop 3 strong. Don't worry about loop 4 or loop 5. Be the strongest that you can be in loop 3. And as I'm sitting there and my crew's taking care of me, I head out there, and I remember putting on some music, and all of a sudden just feeling like a wolf on the prowl.
We got paces. Where's Lupo at? Right here. Where's he at? Right here. Let's go. Thank you.
And to be in in that mode, to be in Lupo, and to feel like just this wolf howling through this loop 3, that was a monumental moment for me. Because even though I had all this negative chatter, I was choosing to move forward. I was choosing to be stronger. I was choosing to push through. And I remember getting through those climbs and being in those climbing scenarios where in the past it would have killed me. And in the past I would have felt so beat up. But I remember running through those, and I remember howling at the top of my lungs out there. I remember screaming. I remember just letting out all this energy because I knew in that moment that I was making the conscious choice to show up on those hills strong. I was making the conscious choice to run strong. I was making the conscious choice to not listen to those negative thoughts that were popping into my head. And I made the conscious choice to be Lupo, to be the strongest version of myself, and to turn this race around. I was starting to be hyped, but I told myself, hey, you got a lot of race yet left. Don't let it all out yet, but still, have this inner strength. And I always say, when you're in the race and you start to see good things happen, especially after you've gone through a low, ride the stoke, ride the high. And that's exactly what I did. So I remember telling myself, dude, you beast, you animal, you just went through that third loop in the climb and you felt the strongest you've ever felt. Now all you need to do is take this downhill and run it back. And even though my paces were still a little bit slower, they were actually pretty stable from the last loop as well, which was great. And I just remember telling myself that you're not getting slower, you're actually staying the same. This is good. This is exactly where you need to be. You're on PR pace at this point. You are doing this, man. And I tried to do whatever I could to not let that negative voice get a seat at the table. And that was the biggest thing that I needed to. And at this point, I became optimistic. I became optimistic that I knew that this PR was still in reach and I can get it. And all I needed to do was get to Sarah. That was it. Sarah Osazuski was the next pacer at the last thing. All I needed to do was get to Sarah, because once you have a pacer with you, once you have a team with you, it just becomes so much easier to feed off their energy. So I get into loop 3, at the end of loop 3, and I get into my crew stop again. And I remember getting into my crew stop, and I let out this little fist pump because I was so pumped with how that loop went. And at that moment, if a bus had hit me, or if I just dropped dead in that moment, I would have been totally satisfied with how the race went, because loop 3 had always been my Achilles heel, but I went through and I crushed it, and I went through and I had a loop where I came back from that not demoralized. In the past, I always have come back from loop 3 totally demoralized, totally thinking that my race was over. But at that point, I was hungry for more, and I was excited. And now I was with Sarah. And Sarah is such a good friend of mine. Sarah Osazuski, incredibly talented runner. She's the current Moab 240 champion, current Cocodona course record holder. She's won multiple races, podium multiple races, and she's an all-around amazing friend. And having her there with me was such a boost as well. And to be in that mode where now I was getting to run out there with a good friend of mine who's also a fierce competitor, but also someone who's very, very encouraging, was incredible. And I will say this too, at this moment, knowing that I had Sarah there and knowing that I had my amazing crew like Aaron and then Kyle later on to pace me, I could not do this journey alone. This was a team effort. And there was something about having that team there, right? Having Aaron and Kyle and Michaela and Sarah there that was just so powerful, because these were people who weren't only my friends, but they were doing whatever they could to help us get this goal in the end of the day. And that's when I realized that there was no way that I could do this great goal without these amazing people. I told Sarah, I said, hey, can you just go a little bit ahead of me? I'm going to chase you. All you need to do is just keep moving and I will follow, and that is it. And so basically Sarah went ahead of me, and all I did, I said, just follow her. That's it. And I locked in and I followed her. And as I was running up these hills, I could feel my breathing start to get a little bit more intense. But at this point I said, you know what? I went to a point where maybe earlier in the race, I started to feel struggle. I started to feel like there was this difficulty holding on to me. But you know what? Now I actually want to push it a little bit. And I remember going up those climbs, and I remember I was breathing pretty hard, but I was also moving pretty strong. And on top of it all, Sarah was encouraging me along the way. She was like, you're running so strong, you're doing so great, you're hitting great splits, like this is awesome. And I was feeding off of her positivity, I was feeding off of her energy there. I was also feeding off of myself, just being like, wow, you are running pretty hard at this point and feeling like you're a little bit beat up, but you're still moving strong. And that's when this whole idea just started to shatter in my mind to say, hey man, like maybe you can push harder even when you feel this tired, right? Even when you're feeling like you can't go on anymore. Because sometimes, right, when we breathe a little heavy, when our legs feeling a little bit tight, we can get into a scenario where our brain can be like, you can't go further. And we're like, yeah, you're probably right because I feel like crap right now. But at this moment, I really wanted to push the dial on that. And I knew if I just kept following Sarah and I kept going that I was going to get there. So I keep following Sarah. I keep going in there and I keep making it happen. And we get to the top of Jackass Junction. And I said, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And we made it and we felt strong. And as we got there, I remember seeing JP Giblin in there, who's an incredibly talented runner. He's a friend of mine. He's awesome. But I see JP in there and I look at Sarah and I said, oh my gosh, there's JP Giblin. And Sarah goes, well, let's go get him. So JP left a little bit earlier than I did. And so I was a little bit behind him when we were running out. But I see him in my peripherals, like all the way out and ahead. And I remember seeing JP there. And at that point, I turned to Sarah and I said, should we go catch him? And Sarah's super smart. She looks at me and she says, you know what? If you just keep going the pace you're at now, you're going to catch him. And that's when something clicked in my head. It was like, wow, I don't have to keep pushing because I'm moving pretty good right now as I'm feeling good. And I realized one thing too. This is the best that I've ever felt about 75 miles into an ultra, which was crazy. And my mind just got blown. And something happened there when I made the pass on JP and I encouraged him that I just had this switch just flip into me that I was saying, holy crap. And that's when I fully realized like how well that I felt 75 miles in a race. When I thought about in the past, at this point, in the race, 75 miles ago for the past 2 times, I'd felt beat up, I'd felt broken, I'd felt like I wanted to get the hell out of there. But at this point, I was hungry, I was fired up, I was motivated, because I was like, if I feel this good now, then I have so much to give on this last loop, and I know that I can get this PR and be the best that I can be. I remember turning towards Sarah, and I was like, I can't believe this is happening. And Sarah looked at me, and she's like, you are running amazing, you are running awesome, and that was just such a memorable moment, because that was a turning point for when we got into Loop 5, and we were picking up Kyle Curtin. So I walk into Loop 5. The best thing ever is Kyle is dressed up like Rocky Balboa. He is dressed up like Rocky Balboa. And, you know, Rocky is such a pivotal, like, a character for me in fiction. I mean, for me, like Rocky, I always see myself as Rocky in the middle of these races. That's actually where Lupo gets his name from. It's the Italian name for wolf, and I get that because of the Italian stallion, Rocky Balboa, and I see a lot of the qualities of Rocky are in Lupo as well. So to see Kyle all dressed up like Rocky Balboa was amazing. Like, it was just the best moment. But the other thing that I really appreciate about Kyle too is not only is he want people to have a good time and have fun out there, and he's just a super funny guy and just always knows how to make people laugh, but also at the same time he's a competitor. He's intense and he really wants the best version of the people that he's trying to help out there. And that's why I wanted him on that Loop 5. And Kyle's an incredibly talented runner. He's got the fastest overall time on the Colorado Trail. He's got the FKT on the Tahoe Rim Trail, Tahoe 200 course record. I mean, he is just an absolute beast, but also a really, really great person who truly cares about the success of his friends. But he does it in a way where he will not let that person have anything less than them. So I appreciate Kyle for bringing the laughs, but also bringing the intensity and pushing me, because I knew that this was time to push. And I remember being in that crew stop. I remember locking in. I remember putting in some music that was going to be in there. And I remember Kyle looking at me, he's like, you ready to go? And I look at Kyle and I said, Kyle, it's time to burn the fucking house down.
Yeah, let's fucking burn the house down.
Last lap. One more time. Leave it out there.
But now at Loop 5, it was time to embrace the pain one more time. It was time to feel the pain one more time. Because I knew if I pushed through, and I knew that if I went and I pushed it to the max, that I would be able to not only get the time that I wanted to, but to be the best version of myself. Right? Because in the end of the day, if you want to be a better person, you're going to have to struggle. You're going to have to hurt. You're going to have to go through the shit. And in that moment, I knew that I needed to embrace the struggle. I needed to embrace the pain. And that's when we started running strong out there. I'm howling at the moon. It felt like Kyle and I were two wolves in a pack running through on the prowl, trying to hunt through this. And that's when I realized that pain is something that I want to feel right now. I want to feel this pain, and I don't want to let it stop me. I want to let it fuel me. And this is where everything started to come together. I started to think about all the times I was in training and all that pain that I put into training to pay off here too. So every time I was feeling like my legs were dying out, every time I felt like I wanted to stop, I said, no, I want more. I want more of this. I wasn't running away from the pain. I was running towards the pain because I knew that struggle, I knew that hardship, that was the thing that was going to make me better in the end of the day. And that was the thing that I was going to be proud of in the end of the day, for pushing through that pain and making that choice in the end of the day. Making that choice. And so we're going through this. Kyle's telling me, he's like, drive your knees up, man. Climb those hills strong. And I'm climbing those hills strong. I'm grunting along the way. Kyle's encouraging me. He's telling me to push and push and push and make it happen. And we're going up these hills. And I remember we were just listening to music. I had my head down. I was howling at the moon. I was just totally in this mode where I was embracing every ounce of that pain that I was feeling in my legs and my lungs and everything of the such. And I told myself that the pain will not stop me. The pain will drive me.
Here's your Joe. Here, come on the move. Always on the move. Let's go. Oh yeah, let's go, Joe. All right, good job, man. Get away from this lame ass music. Nobody moves fast to the fucking Bee Gees. All right, out of here, man. We're out of here.
And Kyle looked at me and he said, this is where you make it hurt. This is where you make it hurt. And so I remember I said, all right, well, let's go do it. And I put my head down and I pushed as hard as I could. I pushed as hard as I could, and I was just pushing, and I was breathing heavy, and my legs were starting to feel tight. And I remember looking down at my watch, and Kyle notices and he goes, dude, don't look at your watch, man. All you got to focus on is pushing and doing the very best you can. And I said, all right. That's good advice. And so I stopped looking at the watch. I stopped thinking about where I was. All I was focused on was doing my best one more time, pushing deep one more time, giving that strength one more time, fueling all of those positive thoughts in my mind one more time, going through those pains one more time, running that same section of the course one more time, getting to that point where I knew that in the end of the day, that if I just kept pushing through the pain, on the other side of the pain is fulfillment. And that's what I wanted to feel at the end of the day. So instead of running away from the pain, running towards the pain, I knew that I was going to push through that and be proud of that and use this as a moment later in my life to be like, holy shit, if I went through and I did that hard task when it was really, really tough, what are the things that I can do in my life? And I remember running hard and breathing hard. And I remember coming in, we're getting close to the end. And Kyle looks at me and he goes, dude, he goes, if you push now, you're going to get sub 15:30. And I was like, holy fuck, sub 15:30. That's nearly an hour of my PR in the past. And I looked at him and I said, let's fucking push. And I remember just giving it absolutely everything that I had in the tank, running hard. And I remember breathing heavy and running hard and telling myself, don't let up, just keep going one more time, keep going, keep letting it happen. So I'm running in. And as I'm running through the chute, I realized that this is the moment that I envisioned in my training so many times. I envisioned the moments where I was running into Loop 5 with Kyle, seeing all my crew, seeing all my friends, cheering me on, hearing the music at Javelina, seeing the lights on there. I'd envisioned this time so many times in my training, and now it was a reality. And I encourage always everybody to envision those moments, because when they become reality, it becomes truly special. And this was a truly special moment for me, seeing Aaron cheering me on, seeing Sarah cheering me on, seeing all my friends out there cheering me on and congratulating me and making it happen. And as I'm going into here, I'm realizing that all of the hard work had paid off. I started to think about all the work that I'd done, all the training that I'd done, all the failures that I had on the past 2 Javelinas, and all the lessons I implemented, the long runs that I was putting in, the training that I was putting in, the lessons I was trying to learn along the way, all the work that I was doing. And I even thought about, even earlier than that, I thought about how I achieved sobriety, even though I was addicted to drugs for years and years and years. I thought about being this person who would never run more than a mile before 2018, and now I'm here running 100 miles in less than 15 hours and 30 seconds. And I realized that I had made so much progress at this point. The work has worked at this point. And even though I had all these negative voices along the way, even though I had all these people telling me I couldn't do it, even though I had self-doubt all the way, the negative voices are irrelevant. Because the negative voices are irrelevant when keep showing up time after time, when you keep showing up one more time, when you keep doing the work one more time, when you keep always telling yourself that I will not stop until I get this goal, and even though it's going to hurt, and even though it's going to be a long journey, I'm going to get it done. And that's when I realized that this is what it feels like to be fulfilled, to make progress, to do the work one more time, to get to where you need to be. And I remember running through that finish line, and as soon as I ran through that finish line, this weight just came off my shoulders. And it was the weight of all of the negativity that I had carrying from the Javelinas in the past years, from all of that pressure that I had put on myself over years and years and years to have this race be the best version of it too. All of this negative emotions that had tried to stop me. Because as I laid down on the ground with absolutely nothing left in the tank, I realized one thing. I had given my all one more time, and that one more time had led me to running my 100-mile PR at Javelina Jundred. And I was just so grateful for my crew, so grateful for all the people who supported me, but I was also grateful for myself for never giving up. One of the most emotional moments for me at the finish line was giving a hug to Aaron Fleischer, my main crew guy. Aaron is like the older brother that I've never had, and he has crewed me every single year at Javelina 100. He is always so dialed in making sure that I have the best race ever. He always knows the right words to motivate me, to get me pumped, to keep me on track, and there is a 0% chance I would have been able to do what I did out there without Aaron. Everybody should find someone in their life like Aaron. If you show up one more time, day after day, brick after brick, time after time, you can become anyone who you want to become, and you can live the life of your dreams and accomplish all that you want to accomplish. And that's what it means to go one more time.